Welcome to the Beyond Divorce, Embracing Change podcast. My name is Michael Flores, and I will be your host while we explore the complex journey of divorce with empathy, insight, and practical knowledge. Whether you're contemplating separation, in a divorce, or looking for support post-divorce, our episodes provide expert guidance, stories, and strategies to help you through every step of the process. We are actual therapists, helping clients who sit on our couches every day through their difficulties of divorce. You are not alone. Join us as we delve in and find solutions that give you hope again. We're glad you're here.
This podcast is not intended to replace legal or personal help. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
Well, good day to you all, and thank you so much for being with us here on Beyond Divorce, Embracing Change. Jen's here with us today to go over really just myth busters, kind of talking about myths. Yeah. And so our listeners, we probably have a mix from, I mean, I can't tell specifically, but it seems like we have a mix of listeners from people in the community that are wanting to understand this topic, professionals, I think some attorneys and judges are listening to what we're talking about. And I got to say, you know, we're in 5 countries now. We're being heard all over the world and coast to coast, you know, in the U.S. So this is real exciting. I think this is a wonderful topic to go over about just myths that people have. And I think it's really just more like beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's the beliefs that we hold to be true or think that have to be a certain way for something to exist. So I think helping people understand what those may sound like or seem like is a good way to start that. So what I guess I'll ask you first, Jen, what made you decide that this was a good topic for our listeners when it comes to just the myths that may exist?
Well, I mean, it's something that I've thought about before because I hear it from parents that I work with and families that I've dealt with in the past where they think a certain thing has to go a certain way because that's what they've been told.
Right.
Or that's what their aunt said, or that's what their friend said, or that's what they read online on Reddit. I mean, there's
or they've ChatGPT'd it or
exactly.
Claude or
all these little myths about getting divorced and the process of divorce. And I think it's a very interesting topic to have so that we can really kind of look at them and maybe debunk some of the myths, think about it from a different angle, kind of flip it around a little bit to help them out so they understand, one, they're not alone.
Yeah. Do you think that a lot of people in high conflict feel alone? Do you think a lot of people feel like they're on their own island?
Yeah, I do.
I seem to get that too a lot in session, that people come in and I had someone not too long ago just come in and be like, I know you've probably heard this before. And it's almost like I appreciate them knowing, like, we do see a lot of patterns. Like there's a lot of similarities amongst all the family systems we work with.
We are people.
We are people, and we do function in pattern, right? And did you know that there's like, I forgot what it's called. You might know this, but there's like 9 personalities. Do you remember what it's called? Like they have this like assessment that's been around forever, and it says that everyone falls in within 9 categories, right? So there's 9 categories of personalities that exist, and we're like we can be like a 4, but we kind of like lean into a 3 or
I know what
5.
you're talking about. I cannot think of the.
I know, you know what I'm talking about though, right? Like it's been around forever. And so
what the Myers-Briggs is.
It's not Myers-Briggs.
That's way old.
No.
It's something else though.
Correct.
I know what you're talking about.
Well, the reason I'm bringing that up is to say that if way back when researchers were looking at this, if they were able to dissect the human nature of people and say, hey, look, we have found that there are 9 personality types.
Yeah.
So for every 100 people you meet, there's only 9 personality types in that whole group of 100 people. There's thousands of people, but there's only 9 personality types. And I thought, well, that's really interesting.
That is a whole topic.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well,
it makes me think of a TED Talk that I listened to about personality disorders.
Right. And we know that was a huge one when it comes to, like, you know, in our field, because they always talk about personalities don't really change over time, right?
Correct.
Like you people change, but their personalities, like if they're really outgoing, they usually stay that way and however else, not saying always, but in most cases. So I guess the reason I'm bringing that to light is just to say that people do function in patterns.
Yeah.
And so when we describe these myths, I think the myths that you want to describe to the listeners, you're talking about patterns that you have found that are common for people. So they know that they're not alone. Like, hey, if this sounds like you, know that this is sounding like others too. Others feel the same way.
Well, I think we're more similar than different.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to how we think and behave and act. I mean, the process of being human, we all are human. No matter where your background is, we do have patterns. And understanding your own patterns may be different from someone else's.
100%. And I think we have, patterns in how we live, habits that we create around those things, beliefs that we hold to be true, that we live off of, and the meaning we make on our experiences, which becomes the truth in which we tell.
Yeah.
And so all those things kind of, when they perfect storm come together, right? And then we live off those. And so I think going, hey, here's a myth. So this is something that sounds true, may feel true, may seem true, but could be a myth to a belief that you hold.
Exactly. And the first one I want to actually talk about is healing. The myths about healing.
Okay.
Because we hear healing means you won't be triggered anymore.
So they make the assumption that if I'm truly healed,
I won't be bothered by this anymore.
So tell us about that.
Well, and when you think about that doesn't make it makes sense in a way.
Sure.
But I know we've talked about this in a previous podcast about the divorce cycle being similar to the grief cycle. That cycle never goes away completely. There's always, you can be a year down the road, 5 years down the road, something happens, a situation occurs, somebody says something, a smell. You never know what it is that brings you back to the moment of this time.
Yeah. Or that relationship.
And where it was, what was happening. I know a lot of divorced people go back and think about the good times. And that doesn't mean you're not healing. It's not a regression. It's just those items are going to come up. The point of healing is to know what to do when it happens. And so, it's a myth that you're not going to be you are going to be triggered. There's going to be something that is going to bring it back to life in a split second, and you're going to it can hit you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, I think so a good barometer maybe when a person is truly at a state of healing is not that something didn't, I'll use the word trigger, that wasn't triggering.
I like that.
It's that, I know, but because with the way it's used, but when something becomes triggering and I'm able to respond to it in a way that doesn't change.
Yes.
Like it's not having I'm not.
The impact is different.
Correct. And so it's how is it impacting you? Versus how it used to impact you. If the impact of it is different and you're still in a state of peace, even though it showed up, the smell happened, the song played on the radio or whatever, and the impact of it is not carrying weight. Yeah. That might be where you've worked through it.
A little bit, but yeah, exactly.
Correct.
It's getting to the point of how does it affect you? Another one about healing is, you have to be over it by now. Someone tells you that. No.
Yeah, why can't you just get over it?
Get over it. No, that's not how things work. Unfortunately.
So one of the greatest things I had a client say to me, and this wasn't a divorce, this was actually a guy that was in a really, really good relationship with a girlfriend, and he really believed that they were going to get married. I mean, both of them had the plan and the intent to marry each other, and it didn't work out. And I remember he came to therapy about it. Like he was really heartbroken, from the breakup. And I forgot what he said to me. It's probably second session or third session, but the way he said this, it really changed everything for me. The way he said it, he said, it's not the breakup that I'm struggling most with.
Yeah.
It's because there was no way it was going to work. Like I see that, I know that it wasn't going to work. It's not that; it's what could have been. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm struggling.
The potential of what it should have.
Yeah, like when he can envision in his mind how the relationship could have been, like what we could have done together, how we could have been with each other, the future we could have had, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's the what if.
Yeah, and so for him, it's like that's the part that he was trying to heal. Yeah, is becoming okay and letting go of what could have been.
Yeah.
That will never be
let go of sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Really, when we have hopes and dreams and you have all these ideas of, oh, this is going to be great, especially when you're first married and you're in love and everything's great and wonderful, and you have this idea of what it will be and it doesn't end up being that, it's hard. That disappointment is real. And, it doesn't just, you don't just get over it in a split of time. Everybody heals at different rates, understanding that you may take longer based on what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I'm going to go and say this for listeners too. If y'all have unresolved issues when you were children,
oh yeah,
that you didn't work through, and what you'll do is you'll play them out in your relationships as adults.
Absolutely.
And so when you go through a struggle as an adult, it'll almost trigger you to go backwards even when you're a kid. Like
yeah.
What did someone say once? I think it was Jay Shetty that said this. I like the way he said it, but I think he said something like, and I'm probably going to misquote him, but something to the extent of when we're kids that have been through something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was a really great experience or a really bad experience, as adults, we try to either recreate what we had, like we want that also as adults,
yes,
or we want completely opposite of that.
Yeah.
And so we try to create that for our lives.
Yeah.
Make sense?
I've had that thought before with parents and kids. And typically if parents have certain behaviors or things that they do, kids will either do the same thing or they do the opposite.
Yeah, like you like when smoking was a thing.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, smoking was a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And my grandpa, I saw what it did and how it actually ultimately probably killed my grandfather because of his emphysema. He lived until he was 87, which is awesome. But the point I'm making is that you're right. I grew up not smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, me too. My parents both smoked.
He was a chippy. I mean, he'd smoke to go through a pack. I mean, he used to buy the cartons, that had all the packs of cigarettes in there in the box. And I'm so glad that he made the decision to stop, because I think it prolonged his life, and I got to have him a lot longer here on Earth, and I miss him greatly. But it was one of those things where you're right. I went the opposite direction. Yeah. I could have went either the same, or it could have went the opposite. So then you think about like drinking, like alcoholism.
Oh yeah,
and families.
Totally, and that's why it's so prevalent within families, and it goes extended because a lot of times kids do the same thing.
Yeah, and so you got to. I guess what I tell our listeners too is like monkey see, monkey do. Your kids are watching what you do.
Oh yeah,
more than they're listening to what you say. And if what you say and what you do matches, that's called integrity. For your children, and that's awesome because that's really cool when your kids can trust your words. But a lot of times they look at your behavior. I've had kids request parent meetings knowing their parents don't get along just to watch their parents engage with each other in the room.
Yeah, see how,
because they want to see. Yeah, they want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I watch. It's fun when I put two parents in a room with a kid because the kid becomes such an observer. And to me, I'm like, man, what a great opportunity for you parents if you could sit in a therapeutic office, collaborate together. To the best of your ability, obviously, because I know it's hard, and let the kids watch you do it, and the kids can observe who's really trying to make things work and who's not. They know.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead. Let's get to another myth you said.
Well, there's one more about healing.
Go ahead.
That time heals all wounds. It does not, unless you actually do something about it.
Yeah, that's it. But isn't that a saying? Isn't it like?
It is a saying. But I bring it up because a lot of people think over time I'll just be healed, and that's not true. Right. You have to actually work at it. You got to do the work in order to heal. You can't just magically, I'm healed one day. Yeah, this is why you have parents who 20 years after they get divorced can't still be in the same room.
Well, people use avoidance.
Oh, yeah.
As a coping strategy.
They think they're healing, but not.
They think that's what the health looks like. I'll avoid the hard, and that's how I'll stay healthy. Yeah. So, not realizing that avoidance creates the anxiety.
Exactly. All right, on to the next one.
All right, sorry, yeah.
The next myth that I want to talk about has to do with decision-making. Decision-making deals.
Okay.
Fairness should be the guide in your divorce discussion. We've talked about this before. There's really no idea of fair.
Where do you think that came from, the idea of fair?
I don't... honestly, it's kind of funny. I think of it comes from being kids. When we're kids, we think we have to share, we have to be fair, we get equal time, we get equal presence, we get equal this. Everything's got to be equal. And we somehow don't get past that as adults. Everything has to be equal. And it's not always going to be equal. And especially when you're dealing with a high-risk custody situation, it may not be equal.
Well, the reason fair doesn't work in our culture today is because people have misused it. And so now when they use the word fair, they think they're being manipulated.
Exactly.
I just want what's fair. But it feels like a manipulation.
It kind of goes with the court system being involved. A lot of parents think, I'm going to get justice in court. No.
Well, what does that look like?
Yeah. Or that the court's going to heal everything.
The court will be, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm like I said, I think we have attorneys and judges listening to this podcast. I hope they'll comment.
Yeah.
The court is not solving that problem.
No. They're there to make a decision.
The court is the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And I don't think the court really believes they actually hold the wand of the solution. They really believe the solution exists within the family system.
Yeah.
And if it's a safety issue, then the court's absolutely phenomenal to use when you have a safety issue to protect children. But absent safety, don't you think that the majority of stuff is really, y'all need to figure it out?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think in family law, at least in Texas, they require you to mediate before you ever have a final to settle.
Exactly, because you've got to talk out the different parts. And the whole court is looking at the best interests of the kids and what that looks like. That may be there with both parents at some point.
Well, let me ask it this way. So we're talking about the myth of fairness.
Yeah.
Is best interest always fair?
No. Not at all.
So when a parent comes in and goes, I just want what's in the best interest of my kid. Well, that may not look like fair.
True. Well, and the thing is, I actually see this from the viewpoint of kids because I see a lot of kids.
Okay.
They think fair is 50-50.
The kids?
The kids.
Meaning time.
Time with the parents.
Yeah.
But it should be fair. They should both get equal time with me. And while that may be true in a lot of cases, sometimes it's not appropriate. Sometimes it's just not the thing to do.
The distance, the school, where they go to school.
All
there's other factors. Yeah.
Like I grew up in a different time, but my parents were divorced when I was little. And so my dad didn't live in the same geographical area. We had to take a plane to go see dad. So we only saw him a couple times a year. It wasn't.
Did dad move away from y'all?
He did move for his job. Yeah.
He moved for his job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so here's the hard part is I don't think dad moved for the job to move away from you guys.
No.
But it created distance to the point that it would inhibit his abilities.
And him and mom worked it out, the best they could. We still talk to dad when we weren't there.
So now I'm going to ask you, I want to ask you this as an adult. It's okay. Now that mom and dad worked that out, what are your thoughts on that now? Knowing that they worked that out, even though you saw your dad left.
I never knew anything different. I didn't know they struggled with each other at all until I was much, much older.
How did they do that?
They decided. I asked my parents that. I said, how did y'all decide to not bring all your stuff? She's like, my mom told me this. She's like, your dad and I, when we got divorced, decided at that moment we would be appropriate and respectful with each other in front of the kids.
And what difference do you suppose that made for you now that you grew up and look back and go, wow.
It was really helpful.
Wow.
Now, I knew there were times in my life where they didn't agree on something.
Yeah.
But they never let me know about it.
Okay.
So I think for me, it gave me a sense of I didn't have to worry about it.
Well, and there it is. How could you help them with their disagreements in the first place?
Exactly. I can't.
What kid can? And the point is, they want to help you, but they don't have any authority to do anything. They didn't create it.
Yeah.
They don't have any authority to do anything.
Exactly.
About it.
And that's the thing. Well, it's interesting because some kids think they do, but
well, they're taught they do.
Yeah. And I think that's the other side of this. Another myth that comes up in this a lot is mothers always get custody.
That is a myth.
That is a big myth. I know a lot of men that got custody of their kids.
Well, they don't see it
for one
though.
reason or another.
Yeah, they don't see it though. I mean, and so there's these groups of people. There's the father's group, and then there's the mother's group, and they create these groups because they feel like they've been, the system is flawed. I will say this. It's not a myth. This is the research.
Statistics.
That the statistics are showing that yes, mothers typically have the majority of time with their children.
True.
Statistically, yes.
Yeah.
But it is a myth to say that they always.
Exactly.
Or never, right? Always and never. I run away from those words, guys, as much as you can. Those words. Always and never. Get rid of them. Because it's always never one way and always another. So it's very an uncommon thing to have that. But I will say you're right. I've had cases where I've had the dad who had the daughter.
Yeah.
Or the mom who had the son. They had the opposite sex, but they're living with that parent. Yeah. And you think the mom would have the daughter and the dad would have the son, and I've seen all
variations, yeah.
And so it is a myth. It doesn't always work out that way. What happens is that the court is presented two parents who are saying they'll always tell you, both parents usually always say they want what's in the best interest of the kid. Yeah. But they don't agree on what that looks like.
Exactly.
And so they present to the court their version of what they think that is.
Yeah.
And the court hears through all that, evidentiary, whatever they have, whatever kind of hearing, and then decides this is what's in the best interest of the kid. And here's the hard part that I have to tell parents. Does the judge know your kid?
No.
But they're having to make a decision.
Yeah. Even the older kids that they actually do speak to sometimes, they still don't know your kid.
Mm.
They'll listen to a kid. I mean, you got a 16-year-old, they're going to listen to what they have to say.
100%.
But I've also told kids, that doesn't mean they're going to do what you want.
we wouldn't have what we have in our systems if the kids got to do what they wanted. We would just let them choose and go.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work that way. And so I like that you said that one of the myths is fairness, and that mothers always get custody.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. That is not an accurate statement, but I understand that society feels, and statistically, mothers typically, yes, are ending up with the custody. Yeah. I think one of the issues that I wish would get resolved, honestly, and I'm not saying it's a myth, I'm just saying it seems to always come up, is child support.
Oh, God, yeah.
If child support if someone could come in, do a deep dive in it, and say, how much does child support actually help a family system function? To see if it really is helpful, or if the money grab is becoming the bigger issue, and that's what's causing the
and I think it's going to depend on all the different dynamics that go on with
100%.
If you have a parent that wasn't working and one that is, it's
and then they divorce.
Factor.
Yeah, then they divorce, and absolutely.
So there's a lot of things that go into looking at that. That could be a whole other topic. I would have to bring in someone who knows child support.
I would literally. I'm just talking about this right now, and I know, like, I have the time to do it, but I would, if I knew how much it could help families and kids, I would love to sit with someone who deals with child support, an attorney, a judge. If there was, like, the state had if the state has what do you call it? Basically a union of people, or whatever you want to, if they had a group that met and said, let's really look into child support. How is it helpful? How is it not helpful? How can we clean it up, make it to where it's more suitable for children and doesn't become a point of contention in a divorce proceeding, because then the kid gets used as leverage to either not have to pay child support or to pay it. Because I'll tell you what I did in a case once. I had one of the parents come in and say, the reason they're doing this is because they don't want to pay child support. And I said, I talked to them, and they said the reason this is happening is because you don't want to stop collecting it. So which is true? Like, either they don't want to pay or you don't want to stop collecting. So what if it's both? What if you don't want to stop not receiving it, but they don't want to pay it anymore? So maybe both are true. And so then the issue is, now the whole thing going on with this kid is about money. Yeah. And that is not in the best interest of the kid. The kid has never come in and said, I want money. Yeah. The kid comes in and says, I want peace. Peace. Yeah.
Peace and time.
There you go. All right, let's get
the last one is having to deal with how things end. The myths about how things end, that you need to figure everything out before you leave.
Oh, like everything's got to be figured out before you
actually make the decision. That's not true.
No.
You need to look at things and you need to figure out a plan. Yes. But you don't have to figure out everything, because some things take time. And once you have left the situation, it changes.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things that you're not going to know that you wish you... Most people that I've talked to that have gone through the full cycle of divorce, if you ask them, what do you wish you would have known? Now that you're here, when you first started, they always have an answer. Always. Oh, I wish I would have known this, or I wish I would have known that.
Or I wish I'd done this differently.
Sure. So what that suggests is that no one's ever really going to know everything.
Absolutely not.
As they're going through it. But you need the main things. Yeah. Which is the division of property, the children. How are we going to manage their time, and who's going to make the decisions for the children? Is that going to be a mutual thing we do? Yeah. So division of property, the children, and then and what people don't talk about is future relationships.
Oh yeah.
Like, at some point, if I start dating, either side, what does that look like, and how are we going to ensure that we kind of protect the kid, but stay in our space, like stay on our side of the fence. You're divorced, guys. Like, you don't get to dictate
what the other person does,
who they're dating, and
now you may be able to say how soon they can meet your kids, but
you always around that. Or like, if they're like, there was one case where I had a mom who fell in love with a guy, and he was a registered sex offender. Oh. And the dad's like, we have kids. I don't think our kids can be around that guy. And it's not that he didn't want them. Like, he's not trying to dictate her
history. Yeah.
He's like, you legally can't be around the kids. Yeah. And so she was like, he's trying to control, my relationship. And I said, I don't think that has anything to do with controlling the relationship. I think it has everything to do with protecting the kid.
Similar. I've worked with.
Well, I told you, what? They took it to court, and I said, the judge will sort all that out for you, and I'm just going to let you know what I think is going to happen. Yeah. If you're interested. They said, sure. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. And the judge basically said, I think in that case, you can pick the kids or pick the boyfriend. Yeah. You can't have both, because they're not going to be around the boyfriend.
Yeah, that's a hard one. But it does happen.
there is a future that exists outside of your marriage.
Yeah.
And you want to give each other enough grace and space to live their own lives, but you have to talk about how the kids are going to be part of that.
Exactly.
So I think that's part of a good conversation to have when you're switching out. So you mentioned two things here.
Another one is closure in one conversation.
Okay.
Thinking that you're going to have closure with just one big, great divorce discussion.
Yeah, that's true.
No, because if you have kids, especially young children, that you are going to be dealing with as a parent for 16 years, 10 years, however long until they graduate and they're 18, they can decide for themselves.
So it's like you're saying it's more likely that you'll have a lot of good mini conversations.
Yes. You're going to have conversations over time as things change.
Evolve,
you know, they get into high school and they got activities and friends, and it takes time away from both parents, really.
The kids change so rapidly, too. They go from playing sports to dating to working a job, which impacts the time they spend with you. And good point.
The last one I want to share makes me laugh because I think people have said this. Good divorce means you have to stay friends. You don't.
Well, your kids probably would enjoy that.
Well, you can be friendly around each other. You can be respectful. You do not have to be friends. You don't have to share your lives with each other. You share your information about your children.
You know what I think you have to be? Number one, you have to be a good parent.
Yeah.
And number two, you have to be a good co-parent.
Yeah.
I didn't use the word friend.
Yes.
You have to be that because that's the role you have now when you have children.
Yeah.
And you're in a divorce and you have kids, you have two obligations. First obligation is be a good parent.
Yes, always.
Yeah, be the best parent you can be, best version of that. Whatever that means you need to work on, deal with, even if it's I'm a good person, I just resent my ex.
Yeah.
That's still, you need to work on that still.
That's something you got to work on.
Yeah, you're still going to have to work on that. But the second piece of that, Jen, is being a good co-parent. It doesn't mean the other co-parent's going to be a good co-parent back.
No.
But you still have an obligation.
You can only control your own behaviors and actions.
100%. And that doesn't mean you have to be a friend. What it means is you're being a good person.
Yeah.
You know, I think...
you can disagree with the other parent and still be respectful.
Absolutely. Have you ever had a disagreement with a client, but you're still able to help them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's what we're talking about here.
And coworkers. Not here, but...
let's get into that, Jen. Let's get into that. There's
that was a previous employer situation.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay. Yeah, they may be listening. No, I'm teasing. But I agree with you, Jen. Like, we have that saying, clear is kind.
Yeah.
And being clear and respectful to one another is a kind thing. And I think that's what good co-parents do. I think the thing that, I don't know if we've had a podcast topic on this or not, but one of the things I find with people now is they use the wrong word. They use the word boundary when they mean request.
Yeah.
They're not respecting my boundaries when they really mean they're not respecting my request.
Yeah.
Because a boundary isn't, you do this because I said so, and it's got to be this way.
Yeah.
That's a request for them to fulfill something you want.
Yeah, I need to work on that with some of the kids I have that are trying to create a boundary with their parent. And really, it's not a boundary.
That's a request.
And we have to talk because boundaries are for you.
A boundary is what you set for yourself.
Yeah.
That's right. Like, hey, if we're going to continue to yell in this conversation, I'm going to sit myself out.
Yeah. That's a
boundary. I'm the one moving.
Yes. Making it about
I'm making it about me, not about you.
Yeah.
I'm stepping out because I don't want to do the yelling.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not telling you can't yell. You can choose to yell. I just leave. That's my boundary.
Exactly.
So it's not that you're not respecting my boundaries. I'm respecting my own boundaries. A request is, hey, I would like you to not yell at me when we talk.
Yeah.
That's a request. That's not meaning you're breaking my boundaries. A boundary is for yourself. A request is for another.
Exactly.
And I think that gets confused a lot.
Yeah.
You see they come up all the time. Yeah. So, cool. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Jen, with the listeners?
One thing, I kind of a thing to leave people with. I wanted to ask our listeners, actually, if you have a myth or something that you've been told and it came up different in your divorce or situation, share your stories. I think we would...
Or maybe it's an old belief I had and I had to adopt a new belief.
Yeah, either.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But so that, maybe we can do a podcast with, like, confessions from... They can be anonymous. You don't have to be anonymous.
We had no taxis.
Yeah. But it would be kind of cool to hear from people in the public, people who, have worked through some of these things and what they've heard versus what they experienced.
So if I would so here's what I'll task the listeners with. I love your question. I think it's a great post or a great presentation for them of, hey, give us this feedback. I would ask, my challenge or task for the listeners would be, if they're up to it, getting in touch with us, whether it's through our website, through our email deal there, or if there's some way to link it back to our show. I would love for them to say, these are the beliefs I had, and I was not making progress, and this is the belief I adopted to make progress.
Exactly.
So I have both sides of that coin. So I can go, here's where you were stuck and what you maintained to be true.
Yeah.
And here's what you did instead, the belief you did adopt that actually got you to succeed.
Yeah.
I would love both sides of that if they're open to it. Or if they just say, I only have the one, I don't have the other, that's fine too. But man, if you got them both, send them over. We'd love to share that. And if you want us to give you the credit for it, hey, let us know. Like, hey, you can mention it came from whatever. I don't care. Just to help other people, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone, and for being part of the show and for listening in wherever you may have been traveling. If you're in a plane, if you're on a car, I sound like I'm talking about Superman, wherever you may be headed, we just really appreciate you taking the time to listen in and stop by with us, and we appreciate it. We hope that this information continues to serve you and help you in every way, in every capacity. As I mentioned in the very first show, my greatest hopes for what this show is going to be all about and how it's going to help you, I still want to ring that true for all of you and just let you know that we care a lot about y'all. We want to see things get better as much as possible, and so we ask that you keep moving forward, everyone.